10 years too long since Guantanamo first opened. Hundreds have been held illegally at Guantanamo, Bagram, and many detention facilities around the world. The vast majority have been held without charge, without trial. Far too many have been tortured and subjected to cruel and inhumane treatment. Far too many have been abducted and disappeared into black sites and other types of facilities. Far too many have been denied basic legal rights, such as habeas and the right to a fair trial. And far too many have also died in custody. The vast majority, as you all know, are and were never terrorists. In fact, in Guantanamo, over the last 10 years, only 6 of the 779 detainees were convicted, and convicted at military commissions, no less. Guantanamo has become a shameful symbol of torture, illegal detention, and other human rights abuses committed by the U.S. government, all in the name of fighting terrorism. It has also been an indelible stain on the principles and values we hold most dear and cherish as Americans. Today, there are still 171 men still languishing in detention at Guantanamo. There's little hope that they'll receive a fair trial, little hope that they'll ever be released. They are trapped in legal limbo, and in all probability, they will be detained indefinitely. They are essentially out of sight, out of mind, and in many ways, they have become our forgotten prisoners. Some in Congress, of course, would like to keep it that way. But we here today, we here around the world, will make sure that these prisoners, these detainees are not forgotten. We will continue to fight to ensure that detainees are given the right to a fair trial, to be charged, to be tried in federal court, and otherwise to be immediately released. We will also continue to call on Obama as well as Congress to shut down Guantanamo. 10 years is way too long. 10 years is far too long, and it's about time to finally close Guantanamo. Thank you.
Hold people accountable for the policies that resulted in Guantanamo Bay, Bagram Prison, Abu Ghraib, the torture and the violations of human rights. And, you know, it's illegal to do those things. It doesn't have to amount to torture for it to be illegal. It's illegal to treat people inhumanely under the law. Our law. It's not some other law. It's our law. It's never legal to do these things, ever. And we have an obligation, a responsibility. It's not just a responsibility. The law says we have an obligation, a legal obligation to prosecute people when they're complicit in torture. And I'd really, really like to see that happen, wouldn't you? Yeah. Starting with Cheney. Dick Cheney, who is trying to get us into a war with Iran right now. Thank you very much, right?
Good for Halliburton.
It's good for Halliburton, and it's good for the war profiteers that he represented in the United States government when he was the vice president. And for 30 years, he was in our government, and he was making sure that that money went to those war profiteers. And we've had enough. We've had enough. We would like to see him prosecuted. In March, we're going to occupy the Department of Justice. Yeah! And we're going to tell them to do their job. They are required by law to prosecute war criminals and people who are complicit in torture, and that includes John Yoo. John Yoo, the law professor who teaches at UC Berkeley, and guess what? He's teaching constitutional law again this semester, and we will greet him next Tuesday, the second week of his class, and we will make sure that he understands that we are not forgetting and we are not going away until he is prosecuted and fired. John Yoo isn't just responsible for the torture policy of the United States. He's also responsible for preemptive war. Because the president doesn't have to ask Congress to go to war, according to John Yoo, the great legal mind. How many agree with that decision? Anybody here? Anybody agree with that legal reasoning? No, I didn't think so. He's not that smart a man, actually. Well, actually, he probably thinks that he's very smart because he's still got his job at UC Berkeley. We pay him at our public university over $150,000 a year, and then he has all his speaking fees and everything, including for the Tea Party. Okay, but what I really want to say is that we had a wonderful opportunity at Berkeley to work with No More Guantanamos to pass a resolution welcoming cleared Guantanamo detainees to settle in our community, and that passed the Berkeley City Council last October. And it's a milestone. It's a historic milestone. I would like to encourage everyone here, take this resolution to your community and do the same thing. And see me, I will put you in touch with No More Guantanamos. They are there to support you and get that resolution passed by your city council. What does that do? It tells the John Hughes and the Dick Cheneys of this world that these cleared Guantanamo detainees are not the worst of the worst. They are innocent victims of our horrible, unfair, inhumane policy of rounding people up for bounty and putting them away forever. So please do join us for that. I want to introduce the next speaker now. Nolene Hartigan.
Hi everyone, my name is Nolene Hartigan. I work with Amnesty International in Ireland, in Dublin, Ireland. Really good to be here with all of you today. I'm vacationing in Berkeley, so I guess I'm already very left of centre, right? Often when you speak at an international demo as a guest, you start with "you are not alone." And usually it's a sign of solidarity, you are not alone. But in this case today I'm going to talk about how the US government is not alone. Guantanamo would not still be open and there would not be still men and boys in Guantanamo if European governments hadn't helped. The US was absolutely not alone in this torture detention centre. Throughout Europe, governments were complicit in the kidnap, interrogation and torture of men and boys, and then sending them to Guantanamo Bay. The Irish government was also complicit. We were a bit passive-aggressive, if you like. What the Irish government did was turn a blind eye while they used one of our airports, Shannon Airport, for flights transiting Guantanamo. So flights on their way to or from Guantanamo Bay. We know for certain that there are 4 men that served time in Guantanamo that would not have been there unless Ireland had made Shannon Airport available. It's a bit like being the owner of a gas station and a criminal comes by and says, I'm going to do an armed robbery just down the road but I don't have enough gas. And you as the owner of that gas station says, come on in, I'll give you free gas. That's exactly what the Irish state did. Interestingly, nobody was holding a gun to their head. The only argument that they made was, well, you know, there's a lot of US investment in Ireland, we need the jobs. Does anyone know what's going on in Ireland? The IMF are in charge. Our economy exploded, or imploded anyway. It's just a little bit like your economy. Make no mistake that when the US started to erode human rights, it brought the Western world with them. Ireland is meant to be a neutral country. And yet because we turned a blind eye, we now have blood on our hands. We are now complicit in kidnap, torture and illegal detention. And the same is true for pretty much every European state. Ireland was told by the EU's own investigator into Guantanamo, by the Council of Europe, by Amnesty International and by all the other activist organisations throughout the world that there was incontrovertible evidence that those flights were coming through Ireland. And they ignored it. What's worse, they went up to the US Embassy and said, hey guys, could we check out the law with you? They didn't talk to our own Attorney General, they didn't listen to the human rights experts in Europe, they went up to the US Embassy and said, lads now, could you just tell us that we're not doing anything wrong? So we got some diplomatic assurances that the US was not wrong. Your rollback on human rights has made us all complicit in torture. So I take it back to you are not alone. The US government has not been alone in these war crimes and this kidnap and torture, but you as Amnesty and other activists throughout the US are not alone either. Ireland, a little bit like the US, is going through a chronic economic crisis, and I had a real shock. I got off at Civic and I thought, oh, the UN Plaza. And then I saw poverty like I've never seen it in Europe. Shocking, appalling degradation of human dignity. This economic crisis has to be an opportunity for us to rethink human rights for everybody. For the men in Guantanamo, for the homeless in Ireland, For the predominantly black population that are starving just across the block, we need to rethink human rights, and it needs to start here, now, today. Thank you very much. You are not alone.